Day one Ireland trip. We're in Dublin. I'm in my hotel room now. It's about 9 p.m. And really interesting day. Like we flew in, early flight out of Iceland. I went straight from Iceland to here and got here maybe around 11 p.m. Left my luggage at the hotel and then just went exploring. I had a few things in mind. Went to a cathedral. There's two big cathedrals in town. I didn't get to both of them. There's St. Patrick's, which is the one I didn't see, and then there's the Christ Cathedral, which was interesting. I just assumed it was Catholic, but it's actually Anglican. Just a beautiful building. Like I walked around there. One interesting thing about it was you can kind of, inside there, you can kind of pick out the areas that have been recently refurbished, like in the last couple hundred years, and some of the more original stonework. Like on one side you can see it's the same plans, like the same type of stonework, but on one side it's about, I don't know, probably 500 to 700 years older than the other side, and it's actually starting to like slant outward. You probably can't really tell in the video I'm going to attach, but I feel like it might might cave in one day. But it's really interesting history, and there was a really interesting crypt there with some artifacts. Had a nice lunch, and then what do we do after that? I kind of checked out the park beside St. Patrick's Cathedral. Didn't go to see it, but I'll probably do that tomorrow, as well as some museums. And what else? Oh, I checked out a small little library. Beautiful library, about 300 to 400 years old. They say it's where the author of Gulliver's Travels, I believe his name is Jonathan Swift, he spent a lot of time reading and writing there, which I thought was interesting because it's a story I enjoy. But I felt like in that library it was just like taking a step back in time, because they even said like this is exactly what it looked like in 1700. The books are even in the same places, and in today's day and age, it's easy to forget like how important a role books have played in the distribution of information historically. Like it's made a huge difference, right? And you just look at like that's just how people educated themselves and how knowledge was stored and passed on. So it was just a walk through time going through that library, and came back, had a nap, met the group. It's a group of maybe about 12 to 13 people. We went out for dinner, a traditional Irish pub, and I had a really nice roast beef dinner and some nice live music. And I think I was going to work tonight, but I think I'm pretty tired, so I think I'll probably just turn in early and then maybe get an early start, put in a few hours in the morning, and then have the rest of the day free. So I think we're going to do a walking tour, and I'll probably want to check out that St. Patrick's Cathedral, a museum, and then maybe one or two other things if I have time. So good start to the day. Really interesting city. Like I was talking to the tour guide about this. I think the biggest thing that jumps out to me so far with my limited knowledge of Irish history is just how amazing the recovery has been from, basically starvation and extreme poverty 100 years ago, like 80 years ago, to, really strong economy, forward thinking in areas like technology. Like you have big tech companies have headquarters set up here. I'm not sure why exactly, maybe some tax benefits, but in any case, it's been a remarkable turnaround for the country of Ireland and just a history. So it's kind of like I find the city so far, it's an interesting mix of like modern, glass office buildings and condominiums, but still some of that old city charm. Like there are plenty of old buildings still, and it's an interesting combination between the two of them. Probably reminds me most of the city of Glasgow, just that kind of mix between the modern and the old architecture. So that's enough for now. We'll turn in early here tonight, and another day in the city tomorrow.
Well, I meant to do this update last night, but a little late, so I just went straight to bed. But it's about 7:40 in the morning. We're going to take off in about an hour. I believe we're going to a town called Killarney next, which is about a 4-hour drive, and I think we're going to make some stops along the way, but thought I'd tell you a little bit about my day yesterday. So really interesting day. We started the day with a walking tour with our tour guide of Dublin. I did that for a couple hours, and then I peeled off and looked into the St. Patrick's Cathedral, which was the one I didn't see. Similar to the one that I saw yesterday, which was Christ Cathedral. Really cool spot. Walked around, biked around for a bit, and went into the Irish National Museum. Really interesting artifacts there. I didn't realize this, but it was a really big area for Viking activity at the time. They would come in and, well, they started raiding monasteries here in the area, and they actually set up the first settlements and the first churches. So a lot of interesting Viking artifacts. And then from there, rented another bike again and biked over to this place called Phoenix Park, which is, I believe they said it was 700 acres. It's the biggest outdoor park in all of Europe, which I thought was interesting. It's a mix of forest and field. And most interestingly, they have these herds of deer there. Some of them were kind of like, I think, adolescent, like they were brown with speckled spots. I think the adult ones, they turn like almost black when they get old, which was really interesting. And a lot of them were male, like most of them had antlers, which I thought was interesting. So really cool. Like you don't normally see like wild deer. Like it was almost like a step back into the Middle Ages, kind of like, you know, they'd be like some of the king's deer that Robin Hood would have shot to feed his men. But yeah, so that was cool. Biked around for really a good couple hours. It was some good exercise, and then took an Uber back to the hotel. Little nap, got some work done, got some food to eat, and then went to a comedy show at 8:30. It was in one of the clubs around here, but a 15-minute walk, and really enjoyed that. Like I think the host might have actually run the club, but he was pretty good. The headliner was good. The middle acts, they were okay, but yeah, it was a fun night. I always like going to see live comedy, even if it's not like the best comics in the world. But I always find like either Ireland or Scotland, I find the accent of the delivery like just makes everything funnier. So that was cool. And yes, so that was it for yesterday. We're gonna catch a bus. Like I said, it's at 8:20, so we got what is that, like 40 minutes, and then on to Killarney. So expect to see some interesting scenery along the way, and looking forward to it. It is the end of day 3. It's about 10:30 at night. What a day it was. So we left Dublin around 8:20 this morning and drove for a couple of hours. Was just really struck as we were driving by, like just how green and lush the scenery is. Like it's absolutely incredible. Like you got these beautiful rolling hills, little villages, and just really lush green grass, lots of cattle everywhere. Our first stop was a place called Chastel Rock, I believe it's pronounced, or something like that, which was an old set of church buildings in a little town about halfway between Dublin and Killarney. Town of maybe 5,000 people. Originally a castle for some of the high kings who controlled that province, which I forget the name of the province, but that's basically how Ireland operated for much of its history. Was there was these local provincial kings would rule like one state, and then there would be one high king who would kind of control everything. So it was originally a castle turned into a church, and I believe a monastery at one point. It was pretty busy, really interesting stonework, and pretty well preserved. Really tall circular tower, which I thought was interesting. You don't really see that type of scenery elsewhere. But what was interesting was about 400 meters down the road was another ruin, which was a monastery. And the little bit of reading I did about it was there was this archbishop who was involved in the original building, and at one point he just woke up with visions of one of the other monks or bishops murdering him, and prompted him to start another monastery. Although you wouldn't think, if someone was going to murder him, you wouldn't think being 400 meters away would keep him very safe. So not sure exactly what the thinking was there. But in that case, the monastery was interesting because I'm not sure I was supposed to be in there, but I jumped a bunch of walls to get in, and there was no one else in there. So I just got to kind of sit in there and take it all in to my heart's content, which was really cool. So from there, a few more little stops. And then we got to the town of Killarney, which had a really interesting day. So we checked in around 4:30, and for a couple of hours, I just explored the town by myself. It's a town of maybe 20,000 people. Very bustling town though, very happening place. Like there's lots of small businesses that are very busy, well run, doing well. I'm sure a lot of it's driven by tourism. There's some beautiful golf courses around here as well. But what I did was I walked around. There's a national park here, and the at the entrance of the national park is this beautiful flower garden, this beautiful lush lawn overlooking a lake and some mountains. So I just lay there for a little bit and took it all in. I've noticed something interesting. The grass here, I don't think I'm imagining it. It seems much more lush and thick and just vibrant than what we would have in Ontario. And I looked into it. It makes sense because the climate is just so much more hospitable, and the soil is also very rich. It's really nutritious soil, and it's almost like lawn in Ontario, to get this quality would require like irrigation and fertilization, but here it's just naturally, it's really lush grass, which is nice to lie down on. So I walked around that park for a little bit, checked out the cathedral here, which is much smaller, not much, but somewhat smaller than the cathedrals I saw in Dublin, but very beautiful and not busy. Like there's hardly anyone in there. So I had a good look around probably for an hour, observed, some of the architecture in the church, and they have like stained glass pictures in the windows, which was interesting. Each window would depict like a scene in Irish Christian history, like with St. Patrick and other Irish saints, and then something from the gospel, right? Like Jesus being crucified or something like that. So just beautiful stained glass artwork. Had a very delicious roast lamb dinner. And then maybe the highlight of the day for me, we went to a Irish tap dancing show. There's maybe about 400 people there. It was at a country club nearby. And I mean, tap dancing was one of the things they did, but there was also like just amazing singing, amazing musicians, like some of the best live music that I've seen. I got a little bit of video of it, but it's not going to really do it justice. But I didn't realize the amount of talent and skill that goes into something like tap dancing and how amazing it is to actually see it live, like people who really know what they're doing. I was blown away by it. And well, anytime you get to see professionals who really know what they're doing, it's a pretty cool thing. So I was lucky to get to see that. And yeah, gonna head to bed here soon. And then tomorrow we're gonna do a little drive around the area, do some sightseeing, and then on to our next town. So that's it for now. Gonna get some sleep, and we'll check in tomorrow. Well, that's a wrap on day 4. It's about midnight, pretty late. I had some work to get done after we finished our day of touring, and I was pretty tired, so I took a little nap, had some dinner, and just had a shower and finished up. So I thought I'd do my recap for the day. So I was thinking a beautiful bed and breakfast in Killarney, Ireland, and it's our second night. We're going to be taking off tomorrow. Great breakfast at the hotel this morning, and then we started our drive. We were originally going to do a drive around a place called the Ring of Kerry, which is a pretty famous scenic drive in the area, but it was actually shut down for like a cycling competition, I believe. So we did explored an area called the Dingle Peninsula instead, kind of a silly sounding place, but there's basically, it's maybe an hour west of Killarney. There's a town called Dingle. It's a town of maybe, I don't know, not a big town, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 people. Really scenic town, kind of just a seaside fishing village. So we stopped in there, had some lunch, walked around a little bit, and then continued our drive along the Dingle Peninsula. Very scenic drive. Again, very green and some pretty dramatic cliffs and coastal views that we got. Reminded me of some of the scenes that I saw in Iceland, just quite a bit more green. From there, we went to a museum that was very interesting. It was a museum about an island just off the coast of this peninsula. I forget the Irish or the Gaelic term, but I believe it's the Island of the Big Blanket or something is the English translation. And there's been Irish people living there since the 15th century, never more than a couple hundred. And I don't know if there's anyone still living over there, But they had this documentary just about how life was different over there and how people made it work. And it was really, really incredible just to kind of learn about these people, and got a chance to look out over the island. Like the museum is on the mainland, and then the island's probably about maybe a mile off the coast, and then there's boats running back and forth. So I think some farmers will still take care of sheep there, but it's not like, I don't think anyone lives there year round anymore. But it was just really struck, as I looked at this island, well, the correlations between that and Manitoulin, although this island's much smaller and less inhabited, but just kind of that island lifestyle. But just the amount of life and stories and happiness and heartbreak and things that have happened on that little piece of land over the centuries. It's pretty cool to think, on such a small piece of land, there's been a heck of a lot of interesting life stories out of there. So we continued our drive. We stopped in and saw a couple old churches. Just again, really struck by how accessible some of these ruins are. And I've always thought these stone ruins are really the closest thing that we have to stepping back in time in a time machine, right? And actually seeing, wow, this is the exact spot where these monks and these priests would have operated, would have, said their prayers. And again, countless stories and experiences happened within these walls. We don't know exactly who the people were, what the stories were, but we do know that they happened, right? And we put ourselves in that exact spot. So I was fascinated to see the church ruins, usually surrounded by a graveyard. And then, continued our drive. We stopped again at a really scenic view of the lake that's a part of the national park just outside of Killarney. And then we came back to town. I had a little nap, got some dinner at a nearby restaurant, and then finished up my work day. So that was pretty much the day. Tomorrow, I believe we're going to Galway City. So I hear that's a really vibrant community, a lot of universities, a lot of young people and tech companies, and I hear it's a happening place. So looking forward to that. And for now, time to get some sleep, and we'll check in soon. Day 5 coming to an end. It's about 8:30 p.m. at night. We just got to Galway, and more of a driving day today. So we left Killarney pretty early, maybe like 8:30, 8:45, and made a stop at about an hour in a small town called Adare. And really scenic town. They had an interesting church there with some more stained glass work that I checked out, and a very nice park that I had a look at. And then we kept driving. Our main stop today was supposed to be, it's a place called the Cliffs of Muir, I think is how it's pronounced, right on the sea, maybe about 2 hours north of Killarney. Just a dramatic drop. In some places, it's 750 feet tall. Just really scenic, but unfortunately, it was foggy, and the fog didn't lift at all, so we couldn't see a dang thing. So walked up there, had like a site-specific tour guide to help us look at things, and yeah, unfortunately, we just couldn't see anything, so we didn't spend as much time there as we were planning to. But continued the trip. We made another stop at another area where the fog wasn't as noticeable. The cliff drops weren't nearly as dramatic there, but it was still a really interesting sight. And the landscape has started to change a little bit, I've noticed on this side. It's still very green, lots of grass, but you have bits of limestone poking up through the hills. And in some cases, you can kind of see the layers of limestone, and then it's over top of grass, and it makes a very interesting texture from distance, I found. So I also found at that cliff stop that we looked at, the limestone reminded me a lot of Manitoulin limestone, specifically like the Taskers shoreline. Little bit different. I found, I think, a little bit lighter. It's more of a lighter gray, and it seems to be more breakable limestone, like easier. Like if you just take a piece of limestone and just drop it from even waist height, it'll shatter. But I don't know. I mean, it may or may not be the case, but I've always thought the limestone, like on the Tasker shoreline, is a little bit stronger than that. So it was interesting. And then another highlight of the day. So about an hour outside of Galway, we stopped at a
bar, just a local bar in a small town, and watched a game of, I forget the name of this. I'm gonna have to look this up, but it's basically the Irish version of lacrosse, except the sticks that they carry, it's just like a wooden paddle basically, and they hit this ball back and forth with the goal to get it in the opposing team's net. So that was really interesting. And another thing I learned about this sport, which again I'll have to look up the name of, it's all amateur. So it's very popular. Like they'll fill an 80,000 person stadium, but it's all amateur guys who do it, which I thought was really interesting. And I guess that just goes to the history of the sport that they've had in Ireland. So we got to Galway. I had dinner, just ordered it to the hotel, had a little walk around, got some ice cream. Seems like a very bustling place, like lots of young people. I think it's like a college town. It'd be like their version of a college town. So a lot of young university students, and yeah, seems like a pretty happening place. So excited to do some exploring here tomorrow. And that's it for now. Day 6. Didn't do a whole lot today. It's close to midnight now. I went out for a comedy show, came back, and had a little bit of stuff to finish up. So got a fresh beard trim in. I think it looked pretty good. But yeah, I slept in a little bit today. We didn't have anything like planned on the itinerary. It's more just an exploration day in Galway. So that's where we're at is Galway. So I slept in a good bit, had breakfast at the hotel, went for a little walk around, checked out the cathedral in Galway, which was very impressive. Kind of a sucky day because like within 5 minutes of me leaving the hotel, a bird crapped like all over me. And it was weird, like I thought it was starting to rain, like I felt a big drop of something land on me. And I was like, oh, wow, that was a big drop of rain. And then I looked, and I'm like, oh no. And I was just like covered. There was like a chunk on the back, and like it was just, and then I didn't want to go back because I'd already walked like half a mile from the hotel. And yeah, so I went into the church, and thankfully they had a bathroom in there, and I was just in there for like 30 minutes, like just washing my shirt. But in the annoyance of being pooed on by a bird, I like just wasn't thinking. I placed my hat on top of the toilet tank, and it immediately like fell into the toilet bowl, which thank God was clean. You know, can't imagine if there's like someone else's like crap in there. That would have been rough. And then just I was so distracted, I ended up like I left my phone in the stall. Someone else found it, and luckily I caught it soon enough, and like I was able to get it back. But it's a bit of a rough start to the day, but I enjoyed the cathedral, walked around there for a bit, came back, just chilled at the hotel, and yeah, and then went to the comedy show, which was interesting. Small venue, and I was the only like international person there, so got picked on a little bit, not in a good way, but like just kind of interacted with by the comedians. But yeah, no, it's an interesting scene here. Again, a lot of young people. Lively college town is kind of my opinions on Galway. I would have liked to had a little bit more time and energy to actually explore the city and some of the surrounding areas, but in any case, it was a memorable little stop here, and I think we're on to Belfast next. That'll be our last city stop. So yeah, that's it for now. Not as much to report today, but we'll get some sleep and then we'll hit the road again tomorrow. Getting towards the end of day 7. It's about 8:30 at night. Today we drove from Galway we're in Belfast now. So it was a lot of driving today. It was probably 6, 7, even 8 hours on the road with stops. But interesting. So we drove through, so from Galway, which is kind of Midwest, and then from there we went north, like kind of around the north area, and then we drove through a place called Sligo, which was interesting because I remember, the only thing I know about that place is I remember in the At Home in Mitford story, that's where Father Tim went for his vacation at the end of the story. He was like, we're going to Sligo, and it's a really beautiful area because it's very green, like the rest of the country, but you got those rolling hills. Like in some places in Ireland, it's actually quite flat. Other places you have these rolling hills, even borderline small mountains in some areas, and this place was close to the sea as well. So just Sligo, and then north of Sligo, that whole area was a very beautiful scenic area. Probably had my favorite scenery, or like favorite one place that I found. It was like just a beautiful coastline with a medieval looking castle in the background. It was very picturesque. I got a pretty decent clip of it that I'll put up. And yeah, so just continued along there. If I were to go back to Ireland, that's probably the area I'd want to spend some more time in. It's a really beautiful area. We stopped at I guess it'd be like a religious monument that was active like 3500 BC, something like that. So my thought is it was kind of like the local peoples here, like their version of Stonehenge, kind of. Like it was a place where it was like a graveyard, a place where they would meet for like, community meetings and a religious thing as well. So, like their version of a church, right? Just like how our churches would serve as like, social gatherings as well, religious, and like a burial ground too. So that was really interesting, very historical site. We stopped at another site, which I believe was a recreation or a rebuild of a very old, like religious, or not religious, but like a defensive fort on top of a hill, which gave beautiful views of the area. And it was basically just like a round stone fort that, yeah, again, I believe it has been reconstructed largely, but very accurate to what it would have been back in the day. From there, we continued into a city called Derry, which is basically right on the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. So I didn't really know a whole lot about it, but a lot of history there, a lot of unpleasant history between Ireland and Northern Ireland. And what it really boils down to is Northern Ireland, you got, I think it's 6 counties that are majority Protestant, and they wanted to stick with England, stay in the UK, and then the rest of Ireland wanted to separate. So there's been a lot of warfare and conflict over the last 100 years due to that. But they've found peace now, and it seems like they have an agreement that works. So Derry seemed like a pretty interesting city. We just had a couple hours there. We walked around a little bit. There's a bridge that I walked out onto that kind of signifies the peace between Ireland and Northern Ireland, which is a nice bridge. And then they have the only standing like city wall that's still open in all of Ireland around Derry. So I walked around the city wall for a bit, just explored the town, and then we continued on into Belfast, which is Belfast. I don't know how to say it. I hear different pronunciations, but so that's in Northern Ireland. Seems like a much more industrial city. Interesting for a couple reasons. It was where C.S. Lewis spent some time when he was a kid, which I think is interesting. It was where the Titanic was largely built. We'll hopefully get out to the Titanic Museum in the next couple of days. And I didn't get a video of this, but there's this really interesting like mountain range that legit looks like a giant, like lying down. You can even see the nose outline and the forehead and everything. And it's said that Jonathan Swift, author of Gulliver's Travels, was staying here one day, looked out his window and saw that, and then decided he wanted to write about giants in Gulliver's Travels, which was interesting. So, yeah, so it's an interesting city. I don't imagine it'll be maybe as lively as Dublin. We'll see about maybe a comedy show tomorrow night. I'm sure they have comedy clubs here, and then that Titanic Museum. But they're still kind of catching up on tourism. Like, I didn't realize it, but our tour guide said that up until about 2003, they didn't really have any tourism at all in Northern Ireland. So they're really playing catch up, trying to build hotels and build the infrastructure to house that. But the hotel here's quite nice. Good Wi-Fi, pretty comfortable bed. And we'll probably turn in early tonight, and we got another pretty early morning tomorrow. Fatigue's definitely starting to hit me, but we only got a couple more days, so we'll just finish it out strong and get a good sleep tonight. Day 8, it's a little after midnight. Today was the last day of the tour, so in Belfast now. I got a train out of Belfast tomorrow, I believe at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I did it a little later in the day because I want to go see the Titanic Museum, which wasn't a part of what we did today. But in any case, a very eventful day. So staying in Belfast, we drove north. So we're in Northern Ireland now, which is actually I'm not sure if I mentioned in another review, but it's basically a completely separate country from the Republic of Ireland. I think I did go into that. But in any case, really beautiful scenery. We stopped in at a estate called Belfast Castle, just north of the city. Beautiful gardens, beautiful old building. Hasn't been lived in by like an earl in like the 1930s, but since then I think the maintenance costs were a little too high to keep up with, so he donated it to the city of Belfast. And there's actually some really beautiful nature big green forests and hills and walking trails just north of the city, which you wouldn't expect to find in such an industrial, working class city, but you do. So from there, we kept driving north. We went to a place, I believe it's called the Dark Howls, something like that. And it's basically a country road that you walk down. There's no cars on it. Farmers' fields on either side of it. And then these great big old beech trees hanging over on each side. And it creates like a tunnel-like effect down this road. So it's very scenic, very beautiful. As I understand, they use that to film several scenes of Game of Thrones, which I thought was cool. That was a really enjoyable walk because, driving around, you see all this lush, beautiful looking green farmland. And, you just want to like get closer to it and experience it. And this was actually, a chance I got to kind of just breathe in some of that beautiful farmland again as we walked down this road with the trees on either side of it. So that was interesting. Maybe the highlight of the day for me, I didn't get a ton of video of it, but we did a tour of a whiskey distillery in 1608. It's called I believe it's the Bushmill Distillery, but in 1608, King James granted the rights for this distillery to begin operation, and they've been in continuous operation since 1608, so it's over 400 years old. It's the oldest current operating whiskey distillery in the world, which was really interesting. So the whole process from, what is it they call it, like they malt barley, they mash it up, they turn it into a liquid, they distill it to get the alcohol content higher up, and it's an active distillery. So we saw all these processes happening. We saw the aging process in oak barrels. We saw the bottling process. It's just amazing, like how automated everything is. They're able to pump out, I believe he said 8 to 10 million bottles of whiskey every single year, which I thought was pretty impressive. So that was very interesting to see that, an in-depth look at a working whiskey distillery. And then from there, we went to a place called the Giant's Causeway, which is essentially just a section of hiking trails and some ocean cliffs. Very scenic. So I really enjoyed, kind of went for probably a 2 to 3 kilometer hike around this area. You kind of start on this, like on top of the cliff looking down, and then you can take some stairs to go down and actually walk along the shoreline. Some really interesting rock formations as well. Like some of the same type of patterns that I saw in Iceland, with those pillar rock formations. And I guess it was, similar volcanic activity at the end of the day that would have created Iceland and Ireland, maybe around the same time. So that was really, really interesting, really great scenery. And then from there, we drove back to Belfast, and then had dinner, last dinner with the group, which was really nice. Had a fish and chips and walked around the city a little bit more. And you know what? My initial impressions of the city was not really much to see, kind of boring. And while it's not like, Paris or an Edinburgh or Barcelona, like a really high-end destination city, there's still some really cool stuff once you kind of get into the city center and see everything that's going on. And I expect to do a little bit more exploration tomorrow before I head off. So it's been a really memorable trip. Well, we've still got a few more stops, but in any case, Ireland has not disappointed.
Well, it's the end of the road. The last night here in Dublin. Going to be taking off for a flight tomorrow at 9:20. So today we started the day in Belfast, and then I could have left in the morning, but I wanted to check out the Titanic Museum in Belfast there. So I booked an afternoon train, went out to the museum. Pretty disappointing, to be honest. It was just like a bunch of photos. They had some cool like models and stuff, but it was really more of a tourist trap. There was just so many people there. It was really hard to enjoy it. So actually ended up getting an earlier train than what I was planning on. Train ride was pretty uneventful. Got into Dublin again, went for a little walk around, got a haircut and a beard trim. They did a great job. Just a quick walk in, pretty reasonable price as well. And just walked around for a bit, checked out some old churches, got checked into the hotel room. There was one church I was going to check out. I looked online. In the crypt, they have all these like coffins, like open like caskets with like decomposed, like skeletons, but like they're kind of like mummified. And I didn't think it was going to be open, but I walked in there. The church wasn't open, but there was one like door leading to the crypt that was open. I don't think it was supposed to be open. I honestly should have gone down there, but I lost my nerve. I was like, something's gonna jump out of like behind the door and attack me. So I was like, I don't want to go in there. And there's like a lot of homeless people around. And I was like, that's probably not worth it. So yeah, but yeah, I had a nice walk around, went to another comedy show, same club that I went to on my first night here. And really impressive. Like it's just a well-run club, probably even better comics than the last time that I was there. So Dublin's a fun city. It's not Edinburgh. Like I'd say Edinburgh does remain my top all-time city, but Dublin's a fun city. There's some interesting history and it's a lively place as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we're in the hotel room now. Pretty small, no AC, but I'm only here one night, so it doesn't really matter. But we'll get on a flight and then we'll be back to Canada for a while. So Ireland, it's been real. Hopefully I'll be back one day, but that is it for now.